question this early in October. Can you tell me a little bit about what it is about your team that you don't know yet that you're curious to find out about?
Right. Well, I think trying to have a defensive identity is really important, I think. We were a team that shot a lot of threes last year. I thought as time went on, we got better defensively, but it took us a while. I don't think we ever became a great defensive team. Matter of fact, we weren't a great defensive team, but we were so much better in January, February, and March than we were earlier in the season. I think a lot of people can speak to that, but with that being said, we got very fortunate. It didn't burn us worse than it did. We got into some close games, but so in hindsight, trying to have more of a defensive identity to start this season is going to be important. And I think we have a leg up on some people because the two guys that return as starters are two of the better defenders in our league. And so adding some pieces, Aaron Wheeler, I think, can use his length to be a really good defender, but trying to find that within our team, I think, is going to be an important piece to find out where we are early in the season.
How much does it help to have those two guys already there, though?
Yeah, it's huge. Anytime you can have experience of having success, it helps you. I think that's something that gets lost a little bit. People say, well, we have a lot of experience. And if you've got experience of getting your ass kicked, then who cares? We have those two guys have experience of having success, and they both had to sacrifice in the roles they've had. And so everybody has to sacrifice to some degree, but those guys have been really good for us and helped us win games, and it's a good place to start.
Have you had Harms in practice yet?
Yes, he's been in practice. He's missed I don't know if that was the first day or the second day that he got hurt.
First day he got hit in the head.
Was it first day?
Yeah.
So he hasn't been since then.
Hasn't been.
He has a concussion.
Does that stunt what you can find out about your team right now?
No, it's all right. It actually helps you because you know what he can give you and you know he's a disciplined player. Sometimes when you get guys that have played before, but they need to be out there from a disciplined standpoint. Everybody needs to be out there from a disciplined standpoint, but he's a disciplined player. Like he understands how we play. He understands what to do. So it actually gives more people in his positions more reps and practice.
We are trying to sort out those double big lineups though too, right?
Yeah. So I think that comes with competition and comes with time. We got to get in shape first before we can get to that.
The nature of your business, there are going to be some tough days you can't do well, you move on. But that said, how hard was it to get over?
Not as hard as you think. I think anytime you have those really tough losses and something happens that's out of your control, because a lot of times when you lose as a coach, you can go back and put your finger on something and you say, man, I wish I could have this back. I'd make this decision. But when it doesn't come to something like that and you just kind of get a bad break or somebody makes a great play, they made a great play at the end. I don't know if they were trying to miss that free throw or not, but they made the guy track the ball down and found him and he made a shot. And, so I just think the circumstances and the offensive play, won out on that possession. So we can't really control that. We still were in a position, in that overtime to win the game too. It just didn't go our way.
Have you ever watched that tape?
I've seen it, but I never intentionally watched it. I got stuck watching it somewhere.
Will you ever sit down and watch it?
Sure, I'll watch it at some point.
Where do you get stuck watching it?
I was walking in the Final Four and they played it on the board. So I saw it there.
Coach, in your second year here, you brought the team to the tournament. Illinois now has a chance to do it with Brad Underwood's third year. From your experience, how important are kind of the early years of a new head coach starting to building momentum?
Yeah. Well, a lot of what you do when you start happens to be the guys that are there when you're fortunate to have them. There's got to be a piece or two left for you. And I was fortunate to have Carl Landry and David Teague, two all-conference guys. They both tore their ACL in my first year. So they had to sit out that year, then they became healthy. So in my second year, I had two all-conference players, one first team, one second team waiting. So that was a great start for us. And then in my third year, we probably had the best recruiting class. Since I've been there, we definitely had the best recruiting class. We signed 4 guys and 3 of them became pros. And so that normally helps too. So, but no, he's done a fabulous job. He has a couple sophomores that are here that he recruited and got to his program, which is key. But he also had Trent Frazier waiting on him. And so that's kind of the punch. That helps you get going by having a guy like Trent, waiting in your program. But then he added a couple pieces, and now it looks like they're primed to go to the NCAA tournament.
Do you think they're underrated?
They have to play games together for me to rate them. So they haven't played games together. So projecting beginning of the year, I voted for the top 25 for like 13, 14 years. And when you sit down and try to figure out who you should vote for before the season, it's a guesstimation. You're doing your best within the data that you have. But it's all data from the past, and it's all rankings from recruiting. If our season and our team was predicated in the 15 years that I was here on where our recruits got ranked, I wouldn't have a job. But since they evaluate us on how many wins we got, I'm glad they do that. Because the recruiting rankings, it's a projection. So sometimes athleticism gets ahead of production in rankings.
You take a lot of pride in exactly that fact in regards to player development for the guys that are under you.
Yeah, I think we've done a great job as a staff in player development, and I also think it's impossible to rank people. And so certain schools have guys that get ranked higher, and certain schools have guys that get ranked lower. So everybody puts a big emphasis on recruiting when they really should put a big emphasis on evaluating. I think sometimes substance gets lost in evaluation, and I try not to lose that. I think it's important to have guys in your program that maybe are a little bit less talented, but you can rely on them. And, they might have heavy feet, or they might not be the fastest guy in the world, but they can make shots, take care of the ball, and they appreciate the opportunity to do it.
In the power conferences, you are close to the top 10 now in tenure. Does that mean anything?
Sure. There's people that like their job, but they don't like it well enough to where they want to move in any profession. And then there's people that really love their job and they want to stay. And that's all we try to do is I just want to keep the job that I have. And I think a lot of times when you keep your head where your ass is, great things can happen. And a lot of times we're all worried about what's next instead of focusing on the present moment. And that's what we've tried to do. I learned that from Coach Katie, and he had opportunities to leave at Purdue and he didn't. And I've had opportunities to leave and I didn't. I think when you find those coaches that really focus in on their team and just trying to worry about, there's a lot of things you can worry about, but your focus should be on your team and how you can help them, win games that season.
In the modern world, how hard is it to be anywhere for very long?
It's very difficult. They by nature, just human behavior is your line with a fan is your best season. So that's their line with you. So if you've won your league and went to the Elite Eight, and you get second in your league and you go to the Sweet 16, you had a bad year. And that's crazy. That's a great year. And if they had to coach a team, they'd realize that. But that is, if you can just accept that and move on. But if you listen to them, you'll end up sitting with them. And you got to keep your focus and trust your experiences on doing what's best for your team.
Coach, you've been right now 15 years now. Compare yourself now to, say, the Matt Painter of 5, 6, 7 years ago, and tell me a little bit about what you are better at as a coach now compared to then.
Well, you make more mistakes. So if you keep learning from your mistakes, you eventually almost run out of them. So that's definitely. I try to let things come to me more instead of trying to say I have the answer. And so each team's a little bit different. So you're just trying to. I don't want to limit somebody on our team that's went from a freshman to a sophomore. Allow their improvements to come out. Or maybe they don't make improvements. But don't come to that conclusion in your mind. Allow what you see to bring you to that. So I try to organically let things happen a little bit more on their own. I think that's the improvement that we've made. But there's also certain things in basketball that never change. And there just is. Taking care of the basketball, rebounding the basketball, having good guys. Having guys that pull for each other. I think those things, it gets a little hokey, it gets to be like coaches talk, but there's a lot of truth to it.
This team projects to be kind of a stronger defensive team. Are you seeing that early in drills, or what are you seeing?
Not really, but it should be. I'm not seeing that. But I've practiced for a week. So you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if anybody says they are, they're lying to you. Because you can't practice for a week and be good at something when you went 6 months of kind of working on it. You know, you don't kind of work on things. You either work on things or you don't.
Last year, you were one of the teams that had a lot of success, but with teams that you didn't have the 5 stars and all that.
Right.
Texas Tech, Virginia. Do you find it's easier to maintain a roster balance?
Yes.
By doing that?
No question. That's a great point. There's no doubt you are, because their expectation is to come to your place and get better and improve. And if things happen, like a DeAndre Hunter, and then like now all of a sudden they get to leave and be a lottery pick, then great. But if they're not ready yet, then great. They're going to keep working. And you look at Texas Tech, like Jarrett Culver didn't say, hey, I'm going to Texas Tech and I'm going to leave after 2 years and we're going to go to a Final Four and that's that. No, I'm going to go to Texas Tech, and he's a great coach, and he got better and he improved, and he was a little bit under the radar, obviously, but he went to the right place that needed him. See, some of these guys that are highly ranked guys, they go places, then they get there, and then it's like they don't need them because they got all the rest of the highly ranked guys. But Texas Tech, you know, I think Virginia's done the best job of any program in the country evaluating. They go and get their guy. You know, the guy that made the play, you know, last year that was a true freshman for Virginia that made that pass. You know, that guy's a true freshman from the state of California. He didn't have a lot of people. You know, Kyle Guy was Mr. Basketball in our state. He was a great player. Ty Jerome, he was a great player. You know, were they McDonald's All-Americans? Kyle Guy was. You know, I don't think Ty Jerome was, but he was a top 50, 60 type guy. And so when you look at the pieces, Diakati wasn't a highly ranked guy. So they got a national championship with 2 guys that ended up making the play that hurt us. And so, but in their evaluations, their staff thought they were great. And that's really all that matters.
And I know you can't speak for other programs, but at least for yours, does that help you maintain consistency year in, year out?
Yes, you have less transfers. So I don't know if we're the school that has the fewest amount of transfers in our league, but we have to be very, very close to it. And the more you can have consistency, and people, like if you're talking as a coach and you're in practice, and 60 to 70% of them don't know what you're saying, it's really hard to win basketball games. But if like 80% of the people in your practice understand what you're saying, and the players are good enough, you got an advantage. And that's what a lot of these guys in this room struggle with, is that it's a revolving door. I'm going to come in your program, I'm going to be good, I'm going to stay, or I'm going to leave and go in the draft. We had as many people leave early last year in college basketball, get drafted, that didn't get drafted. That's alarming. People are getting bad advice, but people are looking at the quick fix. You know, the draft's becoming an ego trip. You know, who cares if you get drafted? The goal is to get in the NBA and stay in the NBA. That's the goal. Getting drafted 57 and then going and not having a college degree and going to the G League and then playing overseas, you could have done that with a college degree. And then maybe you didn't get drafted, but you didn't make it in the NBA anyways. So trying to get them, I always talk about in recruiting, you're going to be a former player for 50 to 60 years of your life. And if that doesn't sink in, you know, because it's your life, you should take a basketball opportunity and have a better life because of it. But if you just look at it as a basketball opportunity only, then you probably won't. So, but
where are you at 2 and 3 now? It seems like you got 4 or 5 guys all kind of even, but is anybody separating themselves a little bit?
I haven't seen that. They're right in there, and you know, Sasha has more experience than those guys. So if anybody's ahead of anybody, it's him because of his experience. He has shot the ball really well. Jihad has scored the ball. Last couple practices, done a good job. Looks like he's getting a little bit more comfortable. Brandon Newman's a very competitive kid. So, you know, he wants it all right away, like all freshmen. You know, so he wants to be able to get it all, understand it all. That's not the way it works. There's a process to it. But he's very competitive. He's had a couple practices where he's really made shots, which is a great sign. So it's a good problem to have. I think things work themselves out.
What about Hunter?
Hunter's done well. You know, he's kind of, you know, both. He's played, you know, he's playing some one, he's playing some two. So hopefully as time goes on and it gets a little bit tougher, you know, he's been through it already. Just like No Gel. Like No Gel made a pretty good jump from his freshman to sophomore year. But he was playing. You know, you got to get out there and play a lot to be able to improve.
You mentioned Brandon hurt his ankle. Is your expectation that's just a couple of days?
Yeah, I think he'll go either tomorrow, I would think at the latest Friday or Saturday. Not Saturday, but Friday, because we have fall break.
What do you see as some of the keys just to having a good defensive team or a lead? Is it effort? Is it just having the guys? Is it communication? Or what do you
I think it's all those things. It's having the physical ability, and then having the determination, and then each coach in here is going to have defensive rules, and you got to be able to follow those rules and then play at a high level.
What are some of your rules?
Huh?
What are some of your rules?
Just basic stuff. Like you have your rules of trying to keep the ball out of the paint. You have your rules in terms of staying with shooters and certain guys. You have rules compared to, like, we double the post, but we don't double the post all the time. We have some different rules in that category. How to handle the ball in the post when we don't double it depends. Is Matt Harms guarding them? Is one of our other guys guarding them? Because obviously Matt's a very good shot blocker. Understanding when the ball's in the middle of the court, who has the ball and who's guarding it, in terms of do I help, do I not help, but do I anticipate help? So I can go on and on.
A couple of years ago, there was when Villanova came in, and the atmosphere at Mackey was like unlike almost any other typical non-conference. Did you see perhaps that Virginia game this year might be sort of like that?
No, it will be like that. I think we've had a handful of games non-conference early that are like Big Ten atmospheres. Like when Indiana comes in, or Michigan State, or Wisconsin, or Ohio State, really any Big Ten team. Like it's an unbelievable atmosphere at Purdue. So like we don't need Virginia to come in for us to have a great atmosphere. But it will be. With that being said, it will be unbelievable. I hope we play unbelievable. That's what I'm worried about. Sometimes you get into those moments. We had Duke come in 10 years ago, and Duke clearly had the experience of being in that environment more than we did. Even though it was a home court, even though we had a good team, and they end up, I think, winning. Maybe they win the national championship that year, or maybe they win it the next year. They win it the next year. They don't win it that year. They beat us in the NCAA tournament the next year.
It's usually ranked as the loudest arenas.
Correct.
So you must be very proud of that.
Yeah, well, I think it was that way before I got there too. We've continued to have successful teams, but our game day operators and management and marketing have done a really good job. And if you go to a game there at Purdue, like they do a great job with our fans, with our student section. We've split our student section, about 6-7 years ago, which I thought was a great idea. So you have them on both ends of the court. So
that is really cool.
You have like that balanced noise. If there's ever such a phrase.
What are your thoughts on Big Ten play being here to stay now in December? Having these early games.
I like it. Coaches don't like change. All right. And like Jim Delaney's always, pounded that drum in terms of we got to make November and December matter.